And then, although that would have been nice to have recorded, that's okay. I'll go over the agenda, the official agenda. All right, so here's the class evaluation. Maybe we'll just start by doing that. So you access it by just going to myctstate.edu. If you need me to, I'll just put that in the chat. Mine, if I access it, it's not going to look the same as yours, but essentially you'll go to where it says, I think, student self-service, complete course evaluations. Let me know if when you click on that, you're having trouble finding it. And then I also say this web link. This was from last semester, so I'm hoping this will still apply. I'll take a look, see if mine shows it. But I may have just the faculty version where I just see the end result. Oh, okay. So hopefully maybe yours looks the same. You click on this course evaluations and surveys, I think. Yeah, see, for me, this I get to see the teacher version, but I think you would be able to click on the actual link to the course to do the evaluation. Okay, so and Mahogany did it already. Great, that's awesome. It shouldn't take too long. So if you all don't mind, maybe like 5 minutes, Mahogany, you can just chill out for 5 minutes and then I'll check back to see how everyone's doing. Let me know if anyone's having trouble finding or accessing the evaluation. So otherwise we'll do 5-minute pause for you to complete that. Cass, go ahead.
I am so sorry. Is it for the course evaluations, is it composition workshop or composition?
Oh, right. So it's it's considered two separate classes. So if you don't mind filling out both, the first half is the 10-10, and then the writing workshop is the 9-10.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right, I'm getting a couple of you are sent in the chat. You can't find the evaluation. So, oops. Let me just see. So my CT state edu should be, it should be where you can get it. Mine is going to be the teacher version, so it's going to look different. Yeah, so I'll just look around here. Basically, if you found it on this page, see, mine's just gonna look different. So it should be there. But if not there, the other link is the one that goes to this page, which should look like that. So it's in the tools. And then again, mine's the teacher version, but hopefully yours will have a category that says course evaluations and surveys. And then you would just click on that. So 4 of you found it. That's good. So any luck? A couple of you were wondering. Tell me if you're able to find it. I'll give everyone a few more minutes. And for anyone that may have already, if you're one of the 4 that have already finished, here's what we'll be doing next. You can click on this poll. I have to open it though, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So we're going to do that poll next. Sorry, ignore that one. I'm realizing it's not the correct one. And sorry about that. Here's the correct link to the poll for anyone that finishes the survey and wants to go to the poll. That's the correct one. All right, I'm coming back over. So 7 of you have completed the evaluation. Thank you for doing that. If you're still working on it, go ahead and finish it. But I'm going to just move on to the main content of our class discussion. So let me share my screen. All right, so as I said, we're going to be discussing an essay that addresses the divide that we have currently in the divided states of America, which don't really feel like United States of America these days. So I just want to start with this quick poll, which is asking you to, in one word, give your thought on what it means to be an American. And you can respond 3 times, I think. So I posted the correct link, but I'll do it again just in case, because the other link was incorrect. So here's the link to the poll. And you can join either from that link, or you can join by text, or you can join with this QR code. So in one word, what do you think it means to be American? And another way to think of the question too, if you're having trouble just answering it that way, is maybe if there's a symbol that you think represents being an American, or a concept that relates to what it means to be American. All right, so there's 8 responses. Take a look. Okay, so this is a little word cloud that represents your responses. So the big words are ones that were most commonly the response. So that tends to be a common way of looking at, America: freedom, free, opportunity. I like that, the way these words go around that. But there's also different ideas related to that, like conflicting, colonizer, problems. I don't know, some of these were like phrases, because if you have more than one word, they get broken up, but we have stand, liberty, one, better. I'm not sure what the acknowledges and the one, better we're going to, but indivisible, justice, country, again, these other negative ones, republic, American, conflicting, together, within, striving. So I get a feel for maybe those dominant impressions. So remember back a while ago, I think we were talking about the dominant narrative of that you hear in mainstream news. So the dominant narrative means like the most common way that people think about something in our society. So the dominant narrative of what it means to be American is freedom, land of opportunity, free. But then there's counterpoints or counter narratives that are like, you know, not often talked about, or maybe even hidden. So that's why we have these other ideas of problems, difficult, colonizer, conflicting. So it's both of those is what we'll talk about during our discussion today. So thank you all for starting us off with that. And I'll get to this American Identity Padlet. I don't know if anyone has had a chance to click on that. I'll just show you what it is, but then, like I said, the writing that we'll do, we'll get to this. So this is, I've been compiling these for the last maybe 2 years. Essentially different representations of what it means to be American in art, in music, in poetry, in essays. So on the far left column is referred to as the traditional American canon, or you could also say that's like the dominant narrative of what it means to be American. So these are some of those songs like God Bless America, the Declaration of Independence, America the Beautiful. And then we think of symbols like Statue of Liberty. And then over here, though, a long list of differing viewpoints to that dominant narrative. So I'm going to ask you to choose one of these a little later for your writing activity, but here's some poetry. I have a counter story playlist, essentially music and videos with different ideas of being an American. That one's really long, and I've been adding to it. I look at every semester, I keep adding to it. So if anyone has any songs that you can think of that you'd want to add, just, you know, let me know and I can add it to the list. Then I have art, links, podcasts, and then just some different ideas to get you all thinking. Now, I don't expect you to open everything because we wouldn't have time to do it. But like I said, I'm going to have you choose one song or poem that you think represents your idea of what it means to be American. Not right now, but we'll get to it. So the reason why I say that is because that Padlet has different perspectives, and that kind of gets at what this essay is all about, called Why America is Self-Segregating. So this author, try and open the right, not there, not there. This author there is talking about essentially on the internet and social media and how they're very divided, particularly ever since the previous administration. So this essay was written in 2017. So it was right when former President Trump took office. And then things shifted quite a bit. So she is a researcher at Microsoft. So again, technology, looking at all those algorithms. Remember, we talked about those. and how those algorithms can shape consumer perspective and identity. And then she's also an adjunct professor at NYU. So she teaches and she's a writer. But maybe before we get into that, I am curious to know, like, do you think America is self-segregated? Do you think things have gotten better or worse? So that was in 2017. Here we are 7 years later. Do you think things have gotten better or worse? How does it feel online? I know several of you don't participate in social media, which is fine. I mean, actually, I'm glad that you don't, but there are some good things to it. But for anyone, okay, Aaron, thank you. Aaron says it feels worse. Maybe it depends on the day, but at the same time, like I'm feeling it too recently, that just things feel like they're intensifying, and we have an election coming, very, very important election coming in November, and I just have a feeling it's going to get even more intense, this divide and misinformation and disinformation that we've talked about. But anyway, let's see what the essay says, and then I'll ask you to do some writing response to the essay. So she starts by saying, giving some context. The United States has always been a diverse but segregated country. So she makes that general statement. Think about the founding of our country. It's probably true. Americans have had to grapple with divergent views and opinions, political ideologies, and experiences in order to function as a country. So, okay, she's saying this is, pretty much what our country is all about. But then she says many of the institutions that underpin American democracy. So that idea of school and religion and employment, all those things are the institutions. She said they force people in the United States to encounter difference. That essentially, if you are a member of society, you're interacting with all different perspectives and types of people. But this does not inherently produce tolerance or result in a healthy resolution. So just because there are differences doesn't mean people tolerate them. And then she gives some examples. And then ironically, that's her transition word. In a world in which we have countless tools to connect, so we've got social media, we've got the internet, we've got cell phones and FaceTime and all that stuff. Even though we have those tools, we're also watching fragmentation, polarization, and de-diversification. So that, like, taking a step back, happening en masse, like happening everywhere. And she says, so this is part of her thesis, the American public is self-segregating. We're doing it ourselves. And this is tearing at the social fabric. So her figurative language there, social fabric of the country. So this is her thesis, and she develops it throughout the essay with some specific examples. So she starts with the internet, and maybe naively, or maybe, like she says, again, figurative speech, it was a kumbaya dream that the internet would connect people all over the world. And I will tell you, since I'm old, I remember in 1991, so this is really hard. So I was graduate student in 1995, and the internet was really only just kind of getting started in 1991. So to be able to get access to it when I was studying, actually my studies started in 1993. To get access to the internet was a rare thing. You had to go to the library. Maybe many people still do have to go to the library, but it wasn't like you had computers in every home, and you certainly didn't have, there were no cell phones back then. So it took effort to research and to connect with people on the internet. But I could see the potential too. And there were those feelings of, wouldn't this be great to be able to, connect with people all over the world? So that was kind of the vision, the excitement of it. But she says these tools were built in a bubble, and that bubble has burst. So the sad reality, and I'll interject my thoughts, is once it became a money-making, and I could see it when it was happening, because it was very much free speech and people freely expressing themselves, and there wasn't much money involved. It was so much more open and communicative at that time. But yeah, once you started to have to pay for things, then that is, I think, when the bubble burst. So she says, nowhere is this more acute than with Facebook. She claims Mark Zuckerberg, so he was the founder of Facebook, was naive in thinking that he could connect people like this all over the world. But he's now a billionaire. Does anyone think he's naive? Or that he was naive? Aaron says no. Yeah, maybe that was his idea, like to have connect with friends. And really, you think about it, that is a good idea, to be able to connect with friends through the social media platform. But right, once the money gets involved and he becomes a billionaire, things change. But so I'm one of the critics. She says, although critics love to paint him as only motivated by money, he genuinely wants to make the world a better place and sees Facebook as a tool to connect people. Okay, that's her perspective there. But then she says the problem is not simply this filter bubble. So remember, we talked about algorithms and how they determine what information each user sees. She says they silo people into these segregated content streams. So basically, depending on what you search for, it will feed you filter information based on previous searches. And then she says that mirrors and magnifies this divisive trend that's happening in the United States, or she says self-segregation. So now leading to her solution, or implying maybe a solution, she says the United States can only function as a healthy democracy, and she repeats, if we find a healthy way to diversify our social connections, if we find a way to weave together a strong social fabric that bridges ties across difference. So that's her thesis, her claim. Do you think that's possible these days, to build a bridge across these differences? Aaron, I think your no was in response to that. It's Carrie Ann says yes. Okay, so Aaron says no, Carrie Ann says yes. Do either of you want to elaborate? Aaron, what do you think? Go ahead, Aaron.
I think that there's a human element of this that no one can predict. I may want everybody to come together. I just like with the whole Facebook thing, I disagree because I think that he genuinely wanted people to come together, but people, as far as the social media thing, are just basically going to the same thing. We're not coming together with differences. They're gravitating towards people with the same opinions and stuff. So I think as much as I'd love for all of us to connect and pass around ideas that we might contradict on, but I don't think that's something that happens. People don't like that. People want to be around people that agree with the same things and the same opinions and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. I think that's probably partly human nature. That is, you do want to be around people that support you rather than argue with you all the time, right? Carrie Ann, I think you did a thumbs up. Was that,
N-
were you agreeing?
it's true what he said, but it's other way. the other way is true too, because everybody has different opinions. But if you come together and have a discussion about it, you could get somewhere like that.
Yeah, I think you both have good points. So, right, the idea is to be able to have a fair discussion, and that, right, that could broaden your own perspective. So yes, you want to be around people that, believe the same things you do, feel the same way as you do, but it is good to know other points of view as well, so that maybe expand your thoughts. And it's a
And
challenge.
if
So that's
even if they argue back and forth, it's going somewhere because they're telling their point of view. I mean, like if somebody says, "Oh, I have this opinion," and another person says they have the other opinion, they will go back and forth. It's like um debating this issue.
right, right. So this is a piece of it too. So having different opinions can sometimes lead to a debate. And that's like when we talk about arguments. So there's always going to be different points of view, but at the same time, to be able to have those different points of view without, insulting or without demeaning or or being any, having any negative thoughts around the other person. So that can be a challenge these days, because we often see, for those of you that are on social media, you often see the trolls come out and they start, with their mean-spirited attacks. So it's hard to have these kinds of productive conversations that you just described, Carrie Ann, when there's an environment like that. So I'll keep going, because I think both of you have good points and they're very relevant to this topic. So then she, the author, gives a couple of examples. One is the military. And so she has the heading Privatizing the Military. She starts by saying a little bit of the foundation of the military as a service organization dedicated to protecting the country's interests. That's what the public generally understands. Then she has her yet. So yet is her transition. That individual motivations of people who join the military are very widely. She says many are enticed to travel the world. They want to participate in a cause with a purpose. They want to get out of wherever they live. But then she says things happen, they can change, but when the soldier is in combat, the main thing is she uses the pronoun she. She must trust her fellow soldiers with her life. Because she wants to emphasize that in the military, women were not always involved. So she says the military must wage war unprejudiced. So there was that gender discrimination in the past, and there was racial discrimination in the past. And both of those came up in the military, and the military was forced to make changes to accommodate those shifting perspectives. So she's, again, yet the United States military was desegregated in 1948, 6 years before the desegregation of schools. So there were, and then also, she says LGBT, but LGBTQ individuals could openly serve in the military before they could legally marry. So this was a diverse force of soldiers who needed to come together and needed to, as she says, entrust their lives to people who are different from them. The opposing view says morale became an issue because they claim that soldiers should not be forced to entrust their lives with people who are different from them. Her transition, as a result, commanders are forced to find ways to build morale and to actively and intentionally seek to break down these barriers and find a way to gel groups of people with different values. Can you imagine that? Like, that would be a challenge for leading people. But traditionally, that's what she said, since that time, that was what was happening. And she uses again that analogy. They build a diverse social fabric that underpins democracy. So she's kind of saying, look, they were able to do it, but then things shifted. Tons of money often comes down to money, was poured into defense after 9/11. So now like the military budget is huge, and that military funding was accelerated and then going more towards private military. Where does she say it? I'm skimming ahead for the sake of time. So it impacts society and skill development. Oh, here it is. Okay. So the military then got involved with privatization, hiring vendors that are not dedicated to the same goals and ideals. And basically they're just in there to make money, to hire and fire people. They have little incentive to invest in helping these diverse teams learn to work together. So these private companies instead focus on culture fit, having people that already believe the same things and get along, and again, reinforcing this segregation in the military. And then her transition, the end result is that in the last 20 years, we've watched one of our major structures for diversification collapse without anyone taking note. I've noticed. I don't know, has anyone else noticed that collapse? How privatization and military, so military and policing in our country has also caused this segregation in our society. So that's one big example. The next big example, which I'm also going to skim through for the sake of time, is self-segregated college life. And she says the American college system is a diversification project. And I think of community colleges as a perfect example of that, where there's tremendous diversity, mostly because they cost less, they're more affordable, they're more accessible, and they usually are more open as far as admissions. I think CT State now has a 100% acceptance rate. So anyone from any background is able to attend college. And so that really does promote diversity. It promotes equity, ideally would promote equity and inclusion. But that's not how it is everywhere. She does say college campuses, so this has been the approach, is that for on-campus housing, they tried to make them diverse, pairing people from different backgrounds. But in her discovery, she says, just like in, oh no, this was, okay, here's the positive. Just like in the military, learning how to negotiate conflict and diversity in close quarters can be tremendously effective in sewing the social fabric. So she's referring back to her thesis again there and saying, here's a second example of how that can work. But then she gets to her experience. I'm skimming ahead, where she says students going to college self-segregated as much as possible. They chose their house, who they wanted to be housed with. Cell phones also had an impact with that. So it helps students stay connected to parents and probably friends and, you know, boyfriends, girlfriends at home. And then that ended up serving as a crutch for them, that instead of communicating with people who are different from them, they just stuck with communicating with people who they knew. Excuse me. So then bringing it to this conclusion, she says students go to elite universities to, quote, get an education. Few realize that the true quality product that elite colleges, and I would say any college really, in the United States have historically offered is social network diversification. That idea of being able to communicate with all different people from, you know, in some cases, people from all over the world. And honestly, I would say that as a professor, that's one of the things that I enjoy most about being a community college professor is learning from students who have completely different backgrounds as me, maybe from different countries all over the world, learning from those experiences. I find it fascinating personally. How does everyone else feel about this idea of social network diversification in college. Does anyone else feel good about that, benefit from that? Think about our class, maybe. Anyone have any thoughts?
Sorry, I couldn't type. I was going to say that it's always good to meet people from different backgrounds,
Yeah, thank you, Aaron.
any capacity, whether it's school. I mean, a bunch of different people at work, um, not just coworkers. Yeah, it's always cool to hear somebody else's story and how they got through their trials and tribulations.
Definitely. I agree with that. And really, so I used to live in New Haven. That's one of the things I missed. I miss about not living in New Haven is and teaching on campus too. It's kind of being involved and hearing conversations and interacting with people in random settings, like you that said, just, wherever you are. And I'm an introvert, so I don't go out and do all those things like I used to. But I recognize that how beneficial it is. Otherwise, you just, stay in that bubble and you don't expand your horizons. It's kind of like food. I think of food that way too. It's trying different cuisines. And when you experience food from different cultures, then you start learning. To me, I would start learning. I'm like, oh, like almost every culture has dumplings. Why is that? Or curry. I love curry, but there's all different kinds of curry. And why are there different curries? So it makes me want to learn about different cultures. Cass says, I think it's really cool because you can learn more things about other people and yourself and celebrate differences. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's what she's saying. This author is saying is the benefit of college is that idea of social network diversification. And that diverse social networks are what increase job prospects. So that if you're able to communicate effectively with people who are different from you and have different perspectives, then you're going to be better. Ideally, hopefully, you're going to be a better candidate for a job and probably be more successful in a job. And then back to her thesis, the reverse is by self-segregating on campus, students undermine their own potential while also helping fragment the diversity of the broader social fabric. All right, so that's her essay. It kind of ties to what's happening, as I said, for context in the world today. So this is kind of long. I think it's like 5 minutes. But we have what's happening at Columbia University. I want to play this historical video first. Oh, I should have queued it up because there's going to be ads. To give you a sense of history of protests. So 1968, there were protests on the Columbia campus. All right, this is an ad on the Columbia campus because of the Vietnam War and the proposal to build a gym in a historically Black neighborhood. So gentrification, Aaron, you're going to hopefully connect with this too. All right, so let me play this video and then I'll ask for your reactions. All right, so there's the little historical perspective. Anyone have any reactions? Was anyone aware of that? Protest from 1968? Or, okay. Christina says, no, I've never heard of it. And so essentially students getting together, protesting, were trying to influence the end of the Vietnam War. So Carrie Ann, Aaron, not aware of it either. So I wanted to play that video to give you the context. So that was 56 years ago, around this same time period, end of the spring semester. And you saw what happened. So now I'm going to bring it to present day. This is just from 2 days ago, I think. Right, sorry, it's not letting me open it from here. So from 2 days ago. And things have escalated since this video. But this just gives a...
Enroll now for accelerated summer classes.
Oh, look, you get the... I was going to say, look, you get the CT State.
Starting in May and July
ad.
at CT State Community Colleges.
All right, so this next one, this is from 2 days ago. So similar location, Columbia University, and this is going to be a news report telling you what's happening.
In New York City, just outside the gates of Columbia University. Massive protests filling the streets. Pro-Palestinian demonstrations appearing to grow on this 4th day since students set up an encampment on campus that led police in riot gear to make more than 100 arrests at the request of the university president earlier this week.
Students tell us despite the risk of suspension, having their ID badges turned off, and losing access to housing here on campus, they've reestablished this encampment, demanding the university divest from Israel.
I was one of the students arrested, suspended by the university. All of these students know the risk, and they're showing up because they understand that in our numbers we have greater safety.
For some, the ongoing protests have led to discomfort even being on campus.
They feel the campus is so toxic, it's so unwelcoming to Jewish students and people who diverge from this line.
And demonstrations are now spreading. Overnight, hundreds of Yale students camped outside a dinner for the university president to protest the school's investment in military weapon manufacturers.
Say no more to military aid!
At UNC Chapel Hill, students set up their own encampment in solidarity with the Columbia students who were arrested this week. All as a national pro-Palestinian student group is calling for action on campuses nationwide. Universities have a long history of political demonstration. Columbia famously seeing buildings overtaken in 1968 by anti-Vietnam War demonstrators.
Revolution!
Tonight's protest on campus and out in the streets, once again making their stance known on a war raging overseas.
It's been 6 months and these protests have only been getting bigger, and it says so much about the hope of this movement.
And George Solis joins us now from outside Columbia University. George, what is the police presence there like tonight?
Yeah, Jose, there is a large police presence here on the periphery of the campus. You can see it right behind me, where protests are still growing strong at this hour. What's unclear tonight is if police are going to go back on campus to disperse the groups of students gathered there tonight. Jose?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and...
Right, so that's what's happening now. But this was 2 days ago, and the police did go and arrest more students. And like I said, faculty joined, and then they arrested faculty. Anyone have any reactions now that you see a little bit? Have you seen any of this on the news or social media?
I seen a little tab on Google about Yale students, something Yale and somebody else students, but I didn't really click it or anything.
Okay, yeah, Yale yesterday, protests were happening at Yale, and as I mentioned, that they shut down streets in downtown New Haven, and then students and faculty were arrested at Yale also. So this is happening right now. This point that I want to make to connect to this is the idea of self-expression, freedom of speech, and kind of related to the climate crisis, we were talking about divestment from fossil fuels as a way to take money out of industries that are destroying the planet and then invest in safer, cleaner energy alternatives. So that's similar to what the students currently are trying to get these universities to do, is divest from the manufacturers of weaponry that are being used in Palestine, used by Israeli military. So that's one of the big things that they are fighting for. And I'm not going to open all these, but these are links that have more information about that. But I want you to think about it. So we're going to do a little bit of writing right now, and then maybe we'll continue with this after the break. But here is the Google Doc. So I want you to think about these videos, think about the essay and your own ideas. We're going to do kind of a free form response, whatever you feel like you want to jump in about. So we started with that innocent question, what does it mean to be American? And this image of the United States has a lot of those different words as well. And then we get to Dana Boyd's essay, Why America is Self-Segregating. And she says, I should put this in bold. The United States can only function as a healthy democracy if we find a healthy way to diversify our social connections, if we find a way to weave together a strong social fabric that bridges ties across differences. So that's her thesis. And you can refer to it. You can, if you agree, disagree, do you think that we can bridge these gaps? So I'll just say for now, maybe just in 10 minutes, think about that first question and maybe, oh, I didn't put that second part. Oh, wait, this is the wrong link. Oh my God, I'm sorry. This is from last semester. I did change it. Don't go in this one. I changed it. I'll have to find it. I think this is the correct link. Sorry about that. To change all my settings now. All right, this is the one to click on. Because then I said, so there's 3 questions, probably only have time to respond to one right now. So you can respond to her argument and then share your own, if you have examples of this idea, either where you've seen self-segregation in college, online, social media, in the military, at work, or any other context. I'm not going to click on the American Identity Padlet now. Maybe we'll do that when we come back. And then you can also, if you want to respond to this third part, think about those student protests happening today and in our country's history. And this question, why do you think our First Amendment right guaranteed by the Constitution is important for a functioning democracy? All right, so take 10 minutes to either respond to one of those 3 or just, free form response with your thoughts for the next 10 minutes. All right, that was 10 minutes. I see some good responses happening here. Why don't we, some of you are still typing and that's fine. But since it's 1:43, I'm thinking, why don't we take a, let's see, 12-minute break. And then that was 1:44. Sorry. Now let's just go to 2 o'clock. Let's take a longer break. We'll take a break, meet back at 2 o'clock, and then maybe discuss this a little bit further, talk about the Padlet, and then we'll move on to just reviewing your Project 2 revised essay. All right, so we'll meet back at 2. Welcome back. It's 2 o'clock. I'm going to share my screen. We're not going to review your posts. I mean, you're not going to share posts right now because I want to get to the other piece, just to at least show you what you'll also need to include for your blog post. So this is pre-writing for the blog. This is the first part that you've all been writing. And I've read your responses and I think they were awesome. Not everybody responded, but those of you that did were great. So the other piece is this American Identity Padlet. So I want you to just maybe take 5 minutes, scroll through this link. I'll put it in the chat. Or you can just click on it anyway. Scroll through this and, choose a poem or a song or something that you think expresses your view, what do I say? That represents your perspective, your view of what American living in the United States is all about. I'm not going to ask you to do the writing about it, but choose your song, poem, essay, whatever. And then maybe just copy it and paste it into that pre-writing. So you can say, add your link here, like at the end of what you wrote, and then you'll continue to reflect on it for the blog post. But just like 5 minutes, look through the list, find something that resonates with you. So if, for example, I'm not going to choose this one, but let's say you want, Born in the USA, that the lyrics to that, they're not all pro USA as sometimes people think it is, but let's say you wanted to choose that, then you could just, oops, I don't want to move it around. Click on it and then just share the link. I'm not going to, but let's just share the link on your response. And then you could add if you want to, if you have time to share in 5 minutes. Yes, Cass, Strange Fruit, Billie Holiday. There's a powerful one. Yes, sad and powerful at the same time. So I'll give you all 5 minutes. We'll go to 2:08. All right, this might take a little bit longer, so I'm just going to show you what to do next, but you'll want to keep thinking about this, think about the song, the lyrics, again, what they might represent. I'll just show you, like I just said, for that song, Keep on Rockin' in the Free World, Neil Young points to the irony of living in a country that proclaims to be about freedom, yet not everyone is afforded that same freedom. He sings about homelessness, drug addiction, military industrial complex, and environmental destruction, which we see every day in our society. I could continue that. So Mahogany, we're just right now doing pre-writing for the blog post, but for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you all to just continue to think about what you're writing. If you haven't yet chosen a song or a poem from this list, you'll need to do that for the blog post. But let me go over to.
Can it be out of the list?
Yeah, so if there's something else, another song or poem that, represents what you see in America, you can choose something else, definitely. So this will be the blog post for week 14. If you finished, I don't think anyone has, but if you finished, then you can just come here and reply to my post. I'm going to just post what I did. Not here. Did I accidentally close it? Oh, sorry. All right, there it is. All right, so I'm just going to copy and paste what I wrote. My God, I'm sorry. There. All right. So then you'll reply. And again, you can keep writing if you're not finished. I'm going to post that. Okay. And I'll read your posts and respond to them. We won't read through them today, but we can respond to each other's posts in the blog, and those will be due. So your initial post due by midnight tomorrow and responses by Sunday. But we're going to shift gears now to, let's see, I want to do the writing workshop just briefly, and then I also want to make sure we have time for the class survey. So beginning of the semester, you did the class survey on English 1010, 910, essentially reflecting on your experiences with writing and what this class would be all about. So this is the follow-up. This is our department survey. They're asking students to fill it out based on your experience of taking this class all semester. So the 1010 part is the first half, essentially the English 1010, where we go over the essays and talk about reading and writing strategies. Then the 910 part is the workshop where we actually do although we did have writing in the first part, but the writing workshop where we do, pre-writing activities, outlining, brainstorming, revising, and then last week you did peer review. So you're going to reflect on all of that for this class survey, which I think we'll do now. It probably will take about 15 minutes. And then I'll finish with reviewing your final revised essay assignment, which is going to be due on Thursday. All right. So here's the survey link, putting it in the chat. And just to show you, this is what it will look like. Oh, you'll have to log in. All right. So end of year click start. You'll see questions. Some of them are multiple choice, some of them are fill in. So you'll just need to answer. I think there's like four, each one, I think there's like 30 questions total. So we'll start, let's say 15 minutes. Well, let's go to 2:20 and I'll check in to see how you're all doing. Let me know if you have any questions as you take the survey also. Just jumping in to see how everyone's doing. Does anyone need more time on the form? Okay, Karina, Karen, good. Thank you for letting me know. All right, well, let's do like another 5 minutes. How's everybody doing with the survey? Anyone need more time? Okay, Karina's all set. I was gonna say if anyone else, okay, submitted, Cass is good. Okay. Okay, Carrie Ann's good, Kai's good. All right, good. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. I hope it was helpful in reflecting and thinking about what you learned this semester. And as I said, next week I'll have another survey that I'm putting together so I can just have for my own class to see what what worked, what needs some revision, and figure out, because I'm always changing my class almost every day, actually. But I do try to have similar things each semester. All right, so in the remaining time that we have, I'm just going to review the revision process and what substantial revision looks like. Remember, that's the key for these essays. So I don't think I'm going to have you do any actual writing today, but I want you to think about your own revisions, what you've already done based on feedback from last week and based on feedback you received from me, and then keep finalizing, take some time away since I'm giving you an extra 2 days.
Do you need the outline?
You should
at the
have,
bottom?
yes, you should have the outline included. So in these extra 2 days, as I said, finalize what you think are your, last revisions, but then maybe take a day. Don't look at it. Maybe don't look at it at all tomorrow. And then Thursday, look at it one last time, and we'll do that again in class. You'll share them with each other and get feedback again. So make any final tweaks before they're submitted on Thursday. So let me just share my screen and show you my first draft compared to my final essay. Excuse me. I think that's what I wanted to do. Yes. All right. So linked on the agenda, if you need it, there is the link to the first draft where you have all of your first drafts Google Docs linked. You can keep making those changes or start a separate document. And then also I include the step-by-step guide if you want to refer to that. But for right now, I'm just going to show you the difference between my first draft and my final revised essay. So here was my first draft. And as I said, there were things that I knew I needed to change. So throughout this sample, I highlighted in green so you could see where all of the citations are. And then I made comments for each key piece. So thesis statement, so your introduction paragraph, just a reminder, you want to have your thesis statement. I was not happy with my title, so that's going to get revised. But you can see throughout, I just highlighted things that I wanted to emphasize, like the topic sentences, etc. And then we get to the end with the conclusion and then the works cited. So this is what your first draft should have: the works cited page, self-assessment, and your outline. But all of that needs to get revised. So I'll show you, scroll up to the top. Here's my revised essay. So in yellow, I made comments highlighting the changes that I made. So I revised the title. I did, ask Pi AI for some assistance. I think I said, I need to come up with a creative title for an essay, on solutions to food insecurity in New Haven. And it listed like 6 or 7, whatever, I don't know how many, but a bunch of possible titles. And, all of them were good, but I thought, okay, I want to do some of my own ideas. So they had Feeding New Haven : and then building something, but I thought, okay, I'm going to change the wording, building a more equitable food system. So part of it was AI, part of it was me. So that's what I did. I didn't change the story. I kept that pretty much the same, but I did tweak my thesis statement. I wanted to make it a little bit more specific and connect back to that idea of create an equitable food system woven together by compassion and care. So that's what I did for my first paragraph change. Then I added the multimodal. So remember, you need to have at least one image. And we talked about how to add the captions to the image, and we went through some examples. Does anyone need me to go over that? Okay.
So you want us to put charts like those, or can we pick our random, like quotes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you missed the class where I went through some examples. So look at last week's agenda. I have a list of possible things you could do: a photo, you could do a chart, you could do a graph, a pie chart. This is considered an infographic where it's kind of like image plus text. So it could be an infographic, but for all of them, you need to do a caption. I'll just double click because then it will show you, because it's small in there. But so my caption will say figure 1. So if it's the first image, I'm going to do FIG period 1. And then you want to describe what the image is. So the food insecurity puzzle, and then the source. So I put my source in parentheses, like an MLA citation of the source. So that's what you want to include for any caption. And then I'll show you. So the source says leading statewide effort. So then you will also need to put that source on your works cited page. And this was new. So I would say additional source. So that I added. So that's the source for that image. Let me back up here. And then you also want to add text that refers to the image. So I said, as the image in figure 1 shows, food insecurity has many interconnected components related to access, financial security, and affordability, which together contribute to the problem. So just that, just one sentence. So you don't want to just plop your image in. You want to make sure to explain it or give reference to it. So that was added. And then this is something I'm trying to reinforce for all of you and in my own writing, that anytime you do a quote, you want to remember that sandwich. So your own words that introduce the quote, then you have the quote, and then the other piece of bread is the sentence that essentially gives context for the quote. So I say, these numbers are a concern and a global health crisis only exacerbates them. And so that leads to my next paragraph, which I added. I wanted to add some information about how COVID affected food insecurity. So this whole paragraph is new. And then this multimodal, this image. So to Carrie, and to answer your question, so then I found a source that had this graph, and I thought, oh, that's related to what I want to say about COVID, the impact of COVID on, so figure 2, chart showing impact of COVID on food insecurity, and then source, actually I should change that. Source is thanks. So I'm going to save that. Oh, up here, save. And so that bank source is also new, and that's listed in my works cited list. All right, so that paragraph's new. I didn't make any changes there. For this one, I did add this transition because I wanted to connect to the idea in the previous paragraph. And then I added that, second piece of bread for the sandwich. These are the kinds of permanent solutions that are critical for elevating New Haven residents out of food insecurity. So that connected back to my thesis. So remember, those transitions that you do at the beginning, at the end of paragraphs are connecting each idea from one to the next, and they're also connecting back to your thesis. That's how you add the coherence to your essay. So then this paragraph was pretty much the same. This one, I added the transition in order to address the problem with integration of services. And then this was the opposing viewpoint. So we'll talk a little bit more about this on Thursday. Is how do you address different views? So remember, they may not be exactly opposite of what you're saying, but it's just a different perspective, let's say. So for this, I responded, I added this evidence. And this I got from the Gateway database that I just showed at the beginning about opposing viewpoints. So I added the quote. And then that source I added at the end. And then I added my counter argument. And I didn't make it a separate paragraph. You could make it a separate paragraph or just do your counter argument right in that paragraph. So then my transition to my conclusion, where I say what my solution is. City of New Haven needs permanent solutions to the problem of food insecurity. And then I talked about what's currently offered. And then I said, this is where I got more specific. I revised the conclusion with clearer solutions. I said, we need to urge representatives to pass legislation. The City of New Haven needs to permanently fund school meals for all. We need to urge our legislators to pass legislation to expand grocery store and food deserts. And the City of New Haven also needs to address food insecurity among college students. So those are referring back to what I said in the essay, but I'm emphasizing it by being more specific in my conclusion about what still needs to be done. I didn't end up changing my closing words. I couldn't think of anything else to revise it to, but anyway, so that's what I changed. So as you can see, throughout the essay, I made big and small changes, but they do significantly affect the flow, the content, and hopefully make my arguments stronger. What do you all think compared to the first? I should have asked all of you, how is the final essay different from the first draft? What do you notice?
I know it's a lot of difference. Like the pictures with the soy on the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so the multimodals are new. So that's definitely what's one piece that's different. What else do you notice? Like maybe not only what's different, but how do the changes improve the essay? What do you all think? Any ideas? Does anyone think it doesn't improve the essay? Is there anything else that maybe for this would be peer feedback? Anything else you think might be missing? Nobody has any suggestions. All right, well, back to all of your essays. This is you can use these two as an example to get a feel for what I mean by significant changes. You're not just correcting grammatical errors, or you're not just correcting citations, but you're adding information and maybe rewording some sentences. I think many of you, I did have, I'd highlight in yellow and say, reword this, or I might make suggestions. So you're going to want to do that. Try to finish those so that you have your finished essay to bring to class on Thursday. And then, as I said, we'll look them over one more time, maybe do like some peer feedback, just again, little final, maybe even proofreading things that you may not have noticed on your own. So we'll do that in class on Thursday. So just we'll wrap up a little early today. So your homework is to finish that blog post. Does somebody want to say something?
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
So I worked on mine all weekend. And when I added my 2 pictures or whatever, and I did the 2 space on every sentence, so now it has split my paragraphs into like different pages, so they're like all by themselves, and there's one that kind of looks odd, but because I have the picture on there, and the picture cannot be too small, so it's not a really big picture, but the picture can be small because then you can't see what the picture has in it. So I'm not really sure how to go about that, because I don't like the way that it's just in that page, but there's still so much space left.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm glad you're bringing it up. And I'm not sure if you saw in class when I was inserting these images, because it does mess up the formatting, just like what you said. And it was
that took
a lot
me
of
just just doing the 2 pictures and putting them where I wanted them. That took me a day and a half, because I had to literally like mess around with it, and it was just like, oh, it was stressful.
Yeah. Oh, it's very, I was just gonna say, I can relate to that frustration. I think you all, if for whoever was, if you were in class when I was doing it, you saw me, I was getting frustrated too. So to answer that question, one thing you could do, first of all, do you have it as a Google Doc? And if you want to share it in the chat, I could try and troubleshoot it. Do you have it that way, Karina?
Sorry, I was talking and I was muted.
Oh, I said
it's in my Microsoft.
Oh, okay, all right. So I was gonna say I could try and do it for you, but one thing you could try, I'm gonna mess around with mine now. So this I have the text wrapping. Do you wrap the text, or did you just have the image on its own?
No. So at first I tried to do just the image on its own, and I liked it, but again, when I split it up into the spaces, it just went crazy. So the problem is that because I am not using Google Doc, I can't do it exactly the way that you showed it. So I figured out another way that it was going to work by doing the way that you showed it. But the thing is that once I am able to put it around like this, I can no longer like tweak the source or figure 2 at the bottom of the
Right.
picture, because I have to do a screenshot in order to be able to use the picture and insert it so it can wrap around.
Yes, I know what you're saying.
So
Okay.
I would have to start all over again. Right now
Right.
it is wrapped around.
Okay.
But it is causing for that one piece to just be by itself. I'm almost wondering if I should just leave it like that, or if I should try to get the paragraphs. I see that yours, like I have 2 spaces in between each paragraph. Yours is not like that. You can identify the paragraph because you have the indent to the right, which I do also. But I normally always just separate my paragraphs by 2 spaces. So I don't know if that will make a difference.
Yeah, so what you're saying, all these things are great for everyone to hear, because it does involve troubleshooting and just playing around to figure out how it will work. So right, that could be one thing. If you want to eliminate the extra space, see if that will get it to fit. You already talked about you don't want to resize it and make it too small, because this is kind of small, but it, I did that same thing. I wanted to make it fit there, because when I first did it, I'm going to do it. It was like It was like that, or it dropped down like in a weird way to the next page, and
Yes.
it wasn't fitting right. See, it's not even doing not even doing what it was doing last week, but it was not fitting right. So that's why I had to make it really small to get it to work in that spot. That was one thing. If you can make it smaller to get it to fit, I can always enlarge it myself on the
I mean,
screen.
it fits. It's just that it's making just that one paragraph kind of go on its own, and
Yeah.
then it's not big enough to fill the page, and it just looks like a little empty, and everything is just kind of split up, and I don't like that.
Right, right. Well, I would just say don't spend too much more time on it, but you could try those things, eliminate the extra space and do a little bit of resizing and see if that will help. But, focus more on the content of your words. I won't be critical if it doesn't look pretty on the page, but I recognize that is frustrating. You want it to be good.
Well, I just wanted to make sense. I don't want it to kind of like that one paragraph to just get lost.
Yes.
Because it's so by itself, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm already all done. I really thought we were gonna revise it today. So,
yeah, well, if you have time and you want to give it a little bit more attention, do that. But don't frustrate yourself anymore. Thank you for your persistence, though. And good question. Anyone else have any questions about final revisions? Cass, go ahead.
This is a bit of like a silly one, but I was planning on including like a photo that I took for the assignment or essay.
Yeah.
How would I go about sourcing it?
Oh, so then the source, you could just put your name.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's fine. And I'm glad that you want to include an image that you took. That's exciting.
Yay.
Yeah. Cool. And not a crazy question. That was a good question. Any other questions about this assignment, finishing it up and having it ready for Thursday? Okay, so I think a couple of you want to talk to me after class. So just to wrap up, your blog post, you still need to work on that a little bit. That's due at midnight tomorrow. And then keep revising, get your finished essay ready for class on Thursday, and we'll just do that, one more review, make any final tweaks so that they'll be ready to submit by midnight on Thursday. All right, great job, everybody. Thank you. And, hopefully we did some self-care and, finish a little early today. Go outside, enjoy the beautiful weather if you're able to. And I will see you all on Thursday. Bye for now and hang out.
Are we still meeting after class?
Yeah, I was gonna say hang out for Mahogany, and I think Carrie Ann also wanted to meet.